Okay, so just off camera, what I had to do is dig around the sides of the soil feeding station, remove some of that material, and then I had a chance to put a piece of branch through one of the holes and then kind of wiggle the container around, and that was enough just to loosen it up. Unfortunately, the part that I've removed is really where there's most of the worm activity, which is what I was hoping to show in this video. What is also nice as well, because that is actually that's down to my elbow, so it's nice and deep this. And what is interesting is, even though it's been so wet, or relatively wet for this time of year, there's no standing water in the bottom of that, so that's given me a nice depth of organic matter to soak away. You can see it's sort of fairly saturated, but there's no smell. It's not stagnant, so there is some air getting in there through the material. And what I occasionally do, you can see, just trying to see if there's any worms down there as well. What I might do is, when I refill this, I'll dig it out a little bit more. Yeah, you see the worms there, big worm there. But what's interesting as well, this is quite heavy clay, and this material around the outside, you can see an amount of worms in it, and it's really granulated, so it's not compacted clay, it's getting some air in there, and the worms are actually working the organic matter in there. And what's quite interesting as well, this hasn't actually been in situ that long, so in a year, it's interesting how much activity goes on in terms of breaking down and distributing this clay with the organic matter. So you can see the material I've dug out from the outside. It's really quite a nice sort of fine texture, so it's like a nice tilth. There's no big wet clods of clay or anything like that, so it's working really well. So in terms of the effectiveness of these soil feeding stations, obviously some of the material is worked into the surrounding bed, which will improve soil and soil life and drainage. And you can see the worms down here, little tiny compost worms a foot down, and that part is quite clayey, so there is enough organic matter in it for the worms to actually get to work as well. But all this is, I don't know if I can see, yeah, you can see the wood chip here. So this is in the last year or so, I've actually raised this about a foot, a good 14 inches, and that is just giving me extra depth above the water table, so it can really get a chance to drain away. I'm quite impressed by that. What I'll do now is I'll show you the soil feeding station itself. So this is just what I've removed from the ground, and you can see it's about 16 inches deep, something like that, and these are about 25 litres, so this is heavy. I don't know if it's just going to come out. Bash it around a bit. Yeah, so you can see there's some worms down in there. And what's interesting is where the most worms are, that's right at the base of this, where it's the wettest. Yeah, so it's quite impressive. So that is bottom inch or so, it's still got quite a lot of wood chip, but there's a lot of worms in there as well. And then that's the part of the brewer's waste. I have to look at the date on this when I installed it. But what is interesting, look, that is actually quite a lot of clay in there. That's strange, but it's getting distributed in that. That's peculiar. So what I'll do is I'll just top up the adjoining bed with this. Well, that is strange, because that is quite clay, and there's biochar in there as well. Yeah, so the worms have actually worked the organic matter into the adjoining bed, and then some of the clay's been worked back in. So that's pretty good. I quite like having that in the soil as well, because it makes more of a soil rather than purely compost. It gives it a little bit more of a, what's the word, a bit more body to it really. So I'll just tip that out, and then maybe tomorrow I'll replace this with fresh part composting material.